I think I probably speak for many of us. Us gamers are suckers for a good underdog or even redemption story. Now you might be thinking that I'm talking about how an actual game's plot plays out, and that is true too. Who doesn't love rooting for the little guy, or better yet playing as them to overcome all those challenges? It's a relatable thing that many of us face and try to overcome our own challenges in day-to-day life. But when it comes to game studios and their games, situations where a game comes out and there are problems with it, and the developer is able to turn it around, better the game for the fans, and better yet really take that personal responsibility to essentially get it all done through hard work and talent. When we see stuff like that, we are ready to get behind that developer and give them the credit that they deserve. Today I want to highlight that with a smaller action RPG title that is such a delight to play, and Wayfinder is the name of that game. So in August 2023, Airship Syndicate teamed up with Digital Extremes, serving as the publisher for their new project, Wayfinder. It would be a free-to-play action RPG that would start in early access and then proceed to improve from there. The initial reception to the game was not what any developer would want to face. The game scored a rating of mostly negative by the Steam players, many citing that they did not enjoy the slow progression, among other problems. A free-to-play model can be a profitable thing for a developer and publisher by having players continually spend money within their game. But this isn't something that works for every game that tries to do it, along with there already being a lot of big names within that space, and gamers only have so much time. The poor reception and poor sales, I think, contributed to Digital Extremes eventually closing their publishing arm, and as a result, Wayfinder was not going to survive. But there was a silver lining. Airship managed to retain the rights, and they were interested in trying to revive the project, find a way to make it all work. A lesser developer would probably maybe try to push through, get the game in a state that was good enough, and then abandon the project and maybe go on to something else. But many players saw, just like with the developers, that there was a lot there that could work better if the game was tweaked and reshaped into an overall better game. This led to Airship making changes that were now very pro-consumer, along with just making choices that would create an objectively better game. Being that Wayfinder was in its early stages, it was an always online game there, with that free-to-play model. Now the game removed the online requirements. The whole game could now be entirely played offline if a player wanted to. Online co-op would be an option, and work through peer-to-peer, even later adding on crossplay as well. Now instead of a free-to-play model, Wayfinder would be like a regular game, but now with no additional items that could be bought with real-world money. This meant that all of those paid items would now be turned into in-game loot items. You didn't have the option to buy cosmetics and all of that. Now you had to just earn it. Grind elements were then improved. Significantly more loot was provided, incorporating traditional RPG talents, along with other changes, improvements, and additions were made. So the game was getting a second chance, a second launch, but it would really come down to how players would receive it. Currently, the game stands with a very positive rating on Steam, showing players are willing to jump back in, even giving a game a second chance. Much of this shows me the commitment and talent for Airship to grab at an unfortunate situation and then turn it into something good. They took feedback provided to them and was willing to find ways to use that feedback to implement elements to overall better that game. It's something I always love about the early access period, when there is that relationship between developer and player. And when respect is seen between both and the communication is good, the game usually ends up being better for it. I gotta hand it to Airship for being able to deliver on just that. When I look back to my personal experience with even getting exposed to Wayfinder, it was a bit of a journey to learn about this game. So I love Airship Syndicate. They contain a lot of talent from the original two Darksiders games. So when THQ was going under and Virgil Studios was getting sold off along with Darksiders, it was here where we saw the studio then split into two different studios. Part of the development team became Gunfire Games. The other became Airship Syndicate. I loved it when they worked together on those Darksiders games, and now I love both of those studios. I usually try to keep a good eye on both of these studios because they tend to make some really great games. For Gunfire, they brought us both the very entertaining and addictive Remnant games. Those are like a nice mixture of Souls-type stuff with third-person shooting. It works great and has a wonderful sense of discovery. Then this team was able to get back into Darksiders with Darksiders 3. It had been a while since 2, and it still managed to deliver in my eyes. It had some rough spots, but it had the heart. Now circling back to the centerpiece of this video, with Airship Syndicate, they ended up making a turn-based RPG based on a 90s comic called Battle Chasers. My first exposure with this new studio was at PAX East. I thought the art style looked amazing, even close to Darksiders, and to come to find out, it was the same artist. Following this, they jumped back into the Darksiders universe, and this was both the first top-down game for that series, along with the first to feature co-op. They knocked it out of the park, and so much so, these two studios should really team up to make one big final Darksiders game. Following Darksiders Genesis, they made The Ruined King, which was a turn-based RPG set within the League of Legends universe. While the game had a big IP behind it, this was also at the time where League was trying to push out many of those League of Legends spin-offs. Ruined King had horrible marketing, and it completely flew under the radar. The quality was all there for their titles. Both teams are great, and generally make some really good, underrated, and overlooked games. So when it had been a few years since Ruined King, I was like, what is Airship up to? This led me to Wayfinder and being extremely surprised that they essentially had a new game out that I completely missed, and it felt like I was really out of the loop here. But with Wayfinder essentially having its second launch, after having a chance to improve on it, that was when I was able to dive in. Does it really measure up to their legacy as a studio? Yes. I am using this section of the video to just express my love and appreciation for both of these game studios, and especially with Airship Syndicate, for their delivery and especially being able to turn it around for Wayfinder. Like I mentioned at the start, we love a good underdog story. Developers really being able to turn it around is a great achievement. You can always make the argument, yes, the game should have been great from the start. Now in many cases this is true, but in other cases just like this, we saw a developer very much grab victory from defeat and end up making a better game for their fans and players. A lesser developer would have blamed their player base for not playing their game, or something like that. Instead, with Airship Syndicate and Wayfinder, the developer did not do this. I didn't find any evidence of this either. Instead, what we saw was the developer sort of pick themselves back up after failing, and then finding a way to succeed, and as a result, bettering that game that was produced. Where the original concept for Wayfinder may have just turned into this monetized free-to-play MMO-like game, here we now have a title that can now be played entirely offline, with the option to enjoy it in co-op too. That right there is a huge improvement over the original concept. On this channel at times I like to poke fun at some of the bad stuff within the industry, but much of my content is actually centered around trying to build up games, showcases for the lesser known ones and indies that really do deserve more attention. And in this case of Wayfinder, the more I play this game, the more I feel compelled to come out and present it to all of you. I have presented my bias with this video, but objectively you cannot ignore this effort and execution in turning this game around and where they are currently standing with it today. This is easily one of 2024's most underrated and overlooked gems. You should definitely give this one a try. I highly recommend it. Have you played Wayfinder? Did you know its story? What is an underdog redemption story that you really liked for maybe another game? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you can help to keep this channel going strong, and this allows me to be able to do more for my awesome audience. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment for ways to support the channel. And most of all, thank you very much for watching.